the sun is going to continue to shine if there's clouds or not, but you feel the rays of the sun more when there's no clouds.
Yeah.
Right? We can all tangibly say we've experienced fear. And when we experience fear and we're given a situation where we have to take a decision, we're always going to take the wrong decision when we're in a space of fear.
100%.
So spirituality is nothing more than becoming fearless.
Virgin Radio.
Well, you see, in this reality, there's two types of happiness. There's something in Sanskrit we call pyar, which is limited and temporary. And there's something which is eternal, which is called ananda. And so as long as we're not aware of where that eternal happiness can be found, we look for it in the things of the world.
Right.
And so whenever we get something of this world and we experience a little bit of happiness from it, it keeps us hooked and we look for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And this we call ice cream happiness. You go from one flavor to another. But what we're really trying to look for is that happiness which can be found when you turn in. And so the comparison is like the rays of the sun reflecting off of broken glass. Right? So you look at the reflection and you think this is the real thing. But none of us actually looks towards the sun. And so that's for most of us, we're in that ice cream happiness reality.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of ice cream now and again.
No, of course not. Even as monks, I like to have pizza. I like to do certain things. But the key is attachment.
Yeah, the key is attachment.
I think a lot of us in this world, we experience some type of suffering. And that suffering says, okay, we have to change. Right? We have to look at ourselves and literally make some changes in our life. I think all of us have experienced that, right? But what happens? We say, okay, how can I change? Okay, let me go and look at Swami's podcast. Let me listen to the Chris Evans show. Let me do this. Let me go to India. So we do these things and we get to a place where we're at the edge of the cliff. We have all of the tools from an intellectual standpoint. And we know that the next step is we have to take a jump into the unknown. But the moment we get there, we say, okay, wait. I've done all of this work. I've listened to the podcast. I've gone to India. But before I jump, let me have a chai. Let me have a tea. And so I have a tea, and then it's quite hot. And you say, okay, let me have a croissant. I'll jump. I tell all my friends, guys, I'm jumping. I promise you, I'm jumping. Just give me 1 second to have some chai and croissant. Then you sit down, you put a chair, you put a table. And then all of a sudden you see others coming to the cliff. And they see what they have to do to go into the unknown. And they say, well, this guy's eating chai or eating croissant and chai. Let me sit down with him for a little while before I jump. Next thing you know, there's a huge cafe on the cliff where everybody is talking about the greatest new esoteric spiritual practices, the newest malas that they got, the places that they went. But nobody's actually doing the work. Nobody's actually becoming humble. Nobody's actually going within. Yeah. So we call this the cafe on the cliff.
I love it. And we've all been there. We're there now.
If we get to a point where we want to jump off of the cliff, and if we want to get to a point where you want to become fearless, and you're like, Swami, how do I do that? There's three simple ways. One we call seva, which is selfless service. So every once in a while, do something where you're not getting anything in return, emotionally or physically. Because we're programmed to act from a space we're always attached to the fruits of our actions. So there's always a goal. I'm going to do this so you will acknowledge me. I'm going to do this so I will get money. When you do that, it reinforces the ego's attachment to this reality. So try and do something where nobody's going to acknowledge you. Right? And so we say, come to the ashram, help people, take your mother out for dinner, and without any expectation. So that's one thing. This is called seva. The next is called sadhana. Sadhana is a daily spiritual practice that helps you to harmonize with love. Because you can either harmonize with the energy of this material reality, or you can harmonize with love. And so when you do the practice, you harmonize with love. We teach a specific practice called mantra chanting. It's a repetition of a mantra that is imbued with the vibration of love. But you can choose whatever you want. The only thing I would say is ask yourself, is this practice helping me to connect to love?
Right. What if you ask yourself, but your ego answers?
So this is an issue. So that to help to counteract that, I'll give you the third one, which is called Sangha or community. So surround yourself with the community that is also striving to love. And in that community, if the ego is getting too big, they can help you to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's not the best. And when I say community, I also mean teacher. I know sometimes it's like a hot topic for many people, but it's really important to have teachers in our lives. Those that we can turn to and say, am I on the right track here? Is this my ego or is this something deeper? Teachers that you trust. I would say in a very simple way, we say there's something called desire and there's something called preference.
Right.
So we can have multitude of preferences. Even as monks, it's not that we're trying to be miserable, right? I prefer certain things. But the difference between preference and desire is if I don't get what I prefer, I am not going to emotionally react.
Right.
But if I have a desire and I don't get it and there is an attachment to it, I'm going to get emotionally angry and then I'm going to suffer. Right. So for as humans, we tell people, you don't need to be a monk. Don't come and join me in the ashram. Like, live your life in the world. Have your cars or whatever you like. But if somebody comes and steals your car or something happens and you're okay with it, then you're free.
Right. Now, don't you, from past experiences, the difference between preference and desire via the Fruit Loops.
Yes.
Can you tell me the Fruit Loops story?
Well, I'll cut it to the Takis.
Yes,
the
thank
Takis,
you. Thank you. So, thank you.
So I was telling the story of desire and preference in Mexico.
Right.
And so I was saying, I really prefer Takis. Do people know what Takis are?
No, but what are
It's
they?
like super chili fries.
Right, okay.
Super, super chili fries.
Yeah.
And I said, I prefer Takis, but I'm not attached to it. And I was giving a multiple talks.
And you're the guy who knows. Apparently.
Let's see. I'm on my way, just like we all are. And so in that moment, they're like, oh, Swami likes Takis. So every talk that I did, people would bring bags and bags of chips. And the next thing I knew, we had 50 bags of chips. And we were going from one city to the other in Mexico. And the lady said, Swami, what do we do with these bags of chips? I said, oh, bring it to the next place. So we take it in the car, we go to the next city, and I go to the hotel and I say, keep the chips at your home. Tomorrow when I come, we'll eat it and we'll have a talk. So I go to sleep, I come in the morning for lunch, and I'm looking around and I say, hey, where are the bags of chips? And the lady said, well, Swami, last night my husband came and we had a big party. And you told me that it was a preference and not a desire, so we served all of the chips. And in that moment, I got super angry. So I knew that it was not a preference, but in fact a desire.
Do you still suffer from similar episodes?
Yes. Life always tests us.
Right.
Life always tests us to see, is he really, really not attached?
Yeah.
Or is
and
it
you
just
want those
saying?
checks in a way.
You have to. That's what keeps us humble.
Virgin